Yo, what's going on, everybody? It's your boy Foots the King. We're going live for this one, but not gonna do much like fan back and forth because honestly, I want Jon to give you guys the information. So, from time to time, I'll have Jon Mochota on the channel, and I'll simply have Jon on the channel just for information. And it's straight from the brick to the bottle. He's rarely that he gives cut and. I'll be honest with you. When I say cut, he doesn't cut the product down. He talks. Jon, you got to give those references. But the truth is, Jon, this is really unprecedented territory. Like, there was a shock factor, but today, talking to you yesterday, hearing what came out today, I can honestly say, Jon, there's a calmness in me. What are you hearing out there? And let's talk about everything that transpired today.
Yeah, so today is the first time we've got to hear Brian Schottenheimer talk about the trade. It's also the first chance we got to talk to Kenny Clark. He arrived early this morning. So, and as I was telling you, Foots, right before we started recording, normally they'll have something like that in the locker room, at their locker, or outside with a backdrop. But they actually had this inside the Ford Center. Which, like I told you, Foots, I don't know that there would have been any more people out there if they had traded for Myles Garrett. I mean, it was packed in there. The cameras, how many people, were there? Like, so practice was the same way. And I would still say that there's some shock there. I kind of felt like practice was not as up-tempo, upbeat. Now we are only out there. We're in game type week stuff now. So this is the type of price we're only going to see like the first 25, 30 minutes. And then even in the locker room, I felt that guys were still surprised, talking to Donovan Ezeraku, Marshawn Nealon. And so with Schottenheimer, I'd say the biggest thing is that he was really trying to put in back up what Jerry was saying about how this was a unanimous decision.
Yeah.
And that just kind of surprises me that we're at that spot now, because you just think of, hey, Micah Parsons is a talented player, that there would have been people like, hey, whatever you guys think are problems, we deal with it, because this is such a rare player. You don't let this player out of the building. And I think it could come back and haunt them. But I'm just telling you from what I'm hearing up to this point is that and the actions that I'm seeing from everybody, that there were things behind the scenes that I don't think they were comfortable giving him this monster 4-year deal that the Packers did. And so maybe everything works out well in Green Bay. Maybe that's a good fit for him, but it just seemed like where things were going in Dallas. And then even hearing Micah talk today to reporters in Green Bay, it sounds like again, he didn't say this definitively, but it sounded like things were going to get uglier, like potentially sitting out games. It seemed like that was on the table. And so in all, maybe what they got in return, it's not great, but maybe in the end, maybe that is just because of how ugly things were getting between the two sides. Maybe that was best that they just, let's get this deal done and let's move on. Now, if he goes on to be like multiple defensive player of the year guy and the Packers are winning Super Bowls, you're not hearing the end of this. This is going to be brought up like as much as Niners fans probably had to hear about Charles Haley in the early 90s. So there is that possibility, or Eagles fans with Reggie White when he went to Green Bay. So there is that possibility. But as it sits here right now, I don't think this was just Jerry Jones on his own saying, I had a handshake deal with the kid back in March. He backed off on it. We're moving on. There's more that's at play here.
There's more, Mochota. Johnny, in our time of working together, we become friends. And one thing I love about it is you're a straight shooter. Yesterday, you had this sentiment, and it was kind of like, okay, let me sleep on it. Let me listen back to the presser. Jon, something that stood out in the presser to me, the locker room question. Will this affect the locker room, right? And when Jerry said, I think it's strengthened, he said something along the lines of, he was so adamant to say, I think our locker room will get stronger. Or something along those lines. And then now you hear and you see the Albert Breer report. So this isn't a Jon Mochota report, or this isn't a Calvin Watkins or the Cowboys beat, but the Albert Breer report, the podcast was in the way, rubbed teammates the wrong way. Some of this stuff is coming out. Then you rewind back to Malik Hooker. I think that was one. And I was going to play the sound, John, but we all know, and it's my job to kind of paint this picture. Malik Hooker came out and said, and I rewatched that video because I can raise my hand and say I was one of the people that said, well, Malik is football. You shouldn't be focused. I mean, let Micah do him. But maybe all of these little things became a thing. Now, at the presser, John, it was so funny to see Jerry protect what he was really trying to say. Before he went in on anything, John, it was just like, I think the world of Micah. There was no ill will, but the locker room was going to be great. I think the world of Micah, but there was a start and a stop. So, John, is there a world where from a locker room, team, culture aspect, the Cowboys may have won this trade, John?
Yeah, it would be tough for me to say that because I just think of how talented Micah Parsons is.
For sure.
And so,
but from the culture part of it.
Yeah, I almost think it's one of those things where I'm not a homeowner, so I probably won't have a great comp for this, but it's almost like selling your house a little under market value because you want to get out of the house to buy something else. So yeah, you're going to take an L on it, but you don't think it's as big of an L as maybe your neighbors think it is or other people because you have other reasons why that you're getting out of that house when you are. And so I think there could be some of that to it. Mike even said today, just recently talking to Packers reporters, that he's not like the vocal leader type. And I've never gotten that sense either, but it was like, he's so talented that he'll go out there on Sundays, he'll produce. And because of that, everybody else, you can't argue with that because it's so rare what he brings. But in terms of, I don't think that you're losing this locker room like leader where like it would all of a sudden cause like major issues in the locker room. I don't get the sense that that's the case at all. If anything, I think it's got to be an eye opener today and yesterday for the locker room that, really no one is above what they're trying to build. If they're going to move on from Micah Parsons, you got to look in the mirror and go, they will move on from me too then, And so, that all of that has to go into play, but now I got to see what Micah does because you got to just kind of put the shoe on the other foot here and say, what if all this stuff was being said about Micah Parsons, who was drafted by the Green Bay Packers, and the Cowboys just made a move for him? You'd be like, yeah, I've heard that stuff and all that. They didn't like the podcast and stuff. It just wasn't a great fit for what Green Bay does, but man, what a talent. So I can't move past the talent part of it. I mean, especially he could be the missing piece for a team like that. In the same sense, it could be one of those things where the Cowboys felt like we're not going to ascend beyond where we've gone up to this point. So this might be taking a little bit of a step back to then maybe take a bigger step down the road. And that bigger step down the road is whatever they end up getting in return for those 2 first-round picks.
4 first-round picks in the next 2 years, John. Think about that. I don't think, and I know it stings, but I'll be watching a lot of college football tomorrow. We were talking about that pre-show. I'm dropping my top 50. I was going to drop it today, but so much news, so I'm going to drop my top 50 tomorrow, John. There's a lot in play. Also, John, I think something that's kind of being underreported is the fact that Stephen Jones doubled down on the fact that they could use those picks to make a play this year. With the cap space that they have, it's $40 million, correct, John?
Yeah, yeah.
Okay, so they could use those picks to either before the trade deadline or whatever the case may have you, John. They can make a play as far as getting a piece. What if it's a corner that's on a bad team that that Dallas can use? What if it's a DN? I mean, obviously we like the pass, we like the room, and we think that this room can provide pass rush, but it could be anything like that, a running back, anybody. So I think with the ammo that Green Bay gave you, and there's people who say, well, they should have got more, but I think that there's going to be more to come with this, John. Now let's talk about the Kenny Clark side of things. I think that, first of all, I warn and I want fans to not poo-poo this guy. Listening to him talk, John, reading up on him, everything it checks out, right? And even if you talk about the play on the field, which apparently took a dip last year, I'm through about 3 games, I still see better than anything we've had in the middle of our defense. But, Packers fans will say it dipped. but he honestly played 17 games with a very nagging toe that he got injured. That got injured. John, what are you hearing boots on the ground about Kenny Clark? What they think of Kenny Clark? I know Packers fans think the world of the guy. What are you hearing?
Yeah, I thought there was a lot of interesting things he said today. So I don't want to just say that this is the most interesting, but for me, I thought it is that when Jerry Jones talked to Kenny yesterday, he told him how this deal wouldn't have happened if Kenny's not involved in it. And I believe that too. I mean, today is the first day of the new. I mean, it's technically unofficial, but the new depth chart is out, and obviously he is in there, and with the starting group in front of Mozzie Smith, which you understood. But that's not a surprise. But to me, when I see it, it just reminds me of how I'm like, what he does. When's the last time the Cowboys have had anybody that can do that? And I get the like people being concerned about him being 30 and that, and so that is, that's completely valid. But in terms of what he would bring to that position, the Cowboys have just been so poor in that area, and they've tried for it to work with Tristan Hill. They've tried with Mozzie Smith, so they've invested some pieces there, and they've done a little bit of stuff in free agency in the past, not enough. But that position is so hard to find a quality at. And so if you get a good, strong season out of Kenny Clark, I mean, I think that the defensive line could be really good all across the ball. They're not going to have the game record that Micah Parsons is, but I think you can get enough out of a combination of Clark and Solomon Thomas and Osa in the middle. And then on the outside, you got Fowler and Sam Williams. And then behind them, you got the two younger guys and Nealon and Ezeraku. Like, I think that's a solid core. You just don't have that one guy that, is that potential 15 to 20 sack guy like a Micah Parsons or a Myles Garrett or Aiden Hutchinson, something like that. But I think you got enough guys there to where you might have 3 or 4 guys that get 6 to 8 sacks each. I think that's possible. I think you look at what Dante Fowler did last year in Washington. He certainly showed, that he's capable of still being that type of an 8 sack season type guy. So if those 4 DNs I mentioned stay healthy and they can keep Osa healthy and Kenny Clark and Solomon Thomas, they're going to have a good defensive line. It just, you won't probably see the flash plays that you would see constantly of Micah Parsons throwing a guy out of the way, or, doing some type of a wrestling move to get around somebody, or the constant moving around that you saw with Micah Parsons. So it'll be in a different way. But I do like, because when you said the thing about making a trade before the trade deadline, like unless there's injury, I think the defensive line is going to be fine. When I think of them potentially making a trade, it goes to what you said. Corner would be the spot where if Diggs isn't completely back to what he was before, you don't get Revel back. Let's say Kyer Elam isn't playing as well as he did in the preseason and training camp. All of a sudden, you're like, we got to get somebody else opposite of Deron Bland. That's the spot I would have my eye on. I think with Overshown coming back, maybe mid-season at linebacker, what they have at linebacker, I think you're fine there. I don't see them making a move for a running back. Wide receiver, they're going to be set at. And then there's offensive line, quarterback, tight end. I don't see that. So corner would be the one spot where if they were going to make a move, that could potentially be the one during the season.
John, I said this, and I want your thoughts in life, right? Normally when you overreact one way, things tend to go the complete opposite. And so I know a lot of Cowboys fans and people who cover the game nationally, what the heck is Jerry Jones doing? He's an idiot. This, that, and the third. And I just feel like the punching bag of it all has went so far left that maybe things do work out. Maybe Kenny Clark does. What's being not talked about enough is Kenny Clark doesn't miss games. And you reported it yesterday. I thought that was a great nugget. I thought it was so is it a toe or a foot, John? I want to get this. Did he have a toe or a foot last year?
Yeah, judging by what he said today, it sounds like it was a toe.
Okay, it's okay. Yeah. But it was broken or something. It was something.
Yeah.
He wasn't right.
It,
And it happened in Brazil.
Yeah.
Hearing him talk, John, he just seems very no nonsense. He seems like he's very lunch pail, do his job. And his play says that, John. I think what I saw on film, and I'm putting out some content on it, people fell in love and looked at the tackles for loss. And I think you go to the stat line, you're like, no sacks, 1 sack last year. The pressures weren't great. But we see Cowboys fans who haven't had any double teams, split, or any of that, whatever. We see a guy who's playing blocks, constantly on the other side of the field, opening up, running lanes for linebackers. John, I said this. Our linebacker room, I really like it. The defensive line room, if healthy, big if, I don't like it, John. I love it. Love Donovan Ezaraku. I love what Sam Williams can become. I love I love Marshawn Nealon. Like, I think that Marshawn Nealon is going to take a big jump.
And honestly, think about what it does to their mindset.
Yes.
Because them coming into training camp, they're all thinking that, hey, how's my role going to fit with whatever they do with Micah? Because this defense is being built around that. You got to grow up real quick. Donovan Ezaraku, there's no more, hey, if you can possibly get something from him as a rookie. Like, no, you know that you're part of this thing right now. And then same thing with Nealon. Like, they need you to take that year 2 jump. Dante Fowler, like, they need you to be the guy that you were last year in Washington that was, kind of surprising people. They got 10.5 sacks. And Sam Williams, if not now, when? This is your time, man. Like, I mean, I can just go over the last couple of offseason, people talking about, man, if Sam can just get out there and stay healthy, like, he's got this, such potential and big playability. But then something always seems to happen to hold him back. Like, this is your chance. This is go time for you now. And so I think everybody has to get that. Everything has to get elevated a little bit because of the fact that Micah's gone. That, like, he's not there to take on this and that. Like, you got to step it up. We all have to step it up, type thing in that room. And I do think that they'll have that. I mean, I think Osa is a good leader. Kenny Clark, from everything I've heard,
those two
is
together,
a good leader.
Oh my God.
So I think you got some good guys in that D-line room to keep it rolling.
So, John, before I let you go, and I appreciate you doing this, man, on a Friday night. You the hardest working man. Seriously, bro. Shotty spoke today, and he spoke about talking to the players, calling them. Was there anything else from the presser that stood out when it comes to what Brian Schottenheimer said at the press conference?
Yeah, he said he called about 12 to 14 players. So obviously those are going to be people on your leadership council, elite level type. The only 2 that he mentioned specifically were Dak and Trayvon Diggs. Obviously Dak, face of the franchise, Trayvon Diggs, because of the fact that
really he was close to Micah.
Yeah, close friends with Micah. He didn't include anything that was said in those conversations. And the way it came off to me, it was one of those things where it's like, almost like, I traded your best friend, Foots. I'm just calling you. I'm here for you to bitch at me. If you want to scream at me, I'm the guy to yell at. Let's talk this out. I know you're probably not happy right now. I think that's why he was making those calls. But here's the interesting thing to me was I take that, but then I also take in yesterday when Jerry was specifically asked about if players were talked to about before this trade. And he mentioned about some informal stuff out at training camp and things like that. And when I hear that, you speculate on names and you're just think to yourself, you're like, you think Jerry was really over there on the tennis court saying, yeah, Steven, did you hear what Luke Schoonmaker said about Micah? Maybe it's time to move on. Hard for me to believe that that's what happened. I find it hard to believe that it was like, hey, did you hear what Malik Hooker said on this podcast a couple years ago? I find it hard to believe that was it, And so that's why I when he mentioned that, and he could have just said, no, the players don't have to have a say in this. This is a front office coaching staff decision. But for him to say that even he heard stuff at training camp was interesting to me as well. The Brian Schottenheimer thing from today for me is just him basically saying how he doesn't think that anything changes for them, that this isn't going to be the type of thing that there's going to be any step back, that their goals haven't changed. Because for me, I just think I'm one of those people that think this is a win or 2 less than what I thought with Micah Parsons.
And you have every right that.
Yeah. So for him to say that, I guess that's what he has to say, but also him understanding the realization, talking about how, I'm not guaranteed anything past this first year. This is a league where we've seen plenty of coaches that they fire him after 1 year. And so him talking about that, I thought was interesting, about how, hey, we're all on this year-to-year thing. Interesting to me, because if you do feel like you're year-to-year, like maybe some of the stuff you might have read about Brian Gutekunst in Green Bay, where it's like, you feel like, man, I got to make this bold move right now because I got to try and justify keeping my job and things like that. If you're in that headspace and you're Brian Schottenheimer and you think you only have 1 year, you're probably not trying to move on from Micah Parsons. I also don't think he only has 1 year. I think he has, honestly, I think he's got minimum of probably 3, just going off of Jerry giving Jason Garrett 9 and Jerry talking about Chan Gailey and having regrets about only giving him 2. It would have to be a disaster for them to move on before year 3, as far as I'm concerned. So those are a couple things that stood out. And then I would say the other thing would be just kind of his confidence about You know, like I said, them being judged on the wins and losses as a head coach and that, and how that he thinks that he can get all the guys kind of pulling in the same direction. If he can do that, then he still expects them to, quote, have great success this year. I don't think great success to Brian Schottenheimer is, we won 7-8 games. I think great success is them making the playoffs, them potentially getting hot at the right time. I think that's a big thing there. And then the last one was just basically him saying Micah Parsons is an incredible player. And then he said a few other things being very complimentary of Micah. And then towards the end of the answer said, but this is the ultimate team game. We're not going to win a championship with one player. And that really stood out to me because I was just like, yeah, you say that, but I mean, this is a very valuable one player. So it's good talk right now, but it's going to be very fascinating to watch this season because everyone's talking a good game right now about this move and about the moves they made in the offseason. So now you got to go out on a football field and play. And we really haven't seen a lot of that from the guys that are going to be playing, whether it be in the preseason or training camp against another team.
So we'll do this, Jon. I want to respect your time. I'm going to let you go. I'm going to get to these supers. I just want to say thank you for jumping on a Friday night. I'm going to get to these supers. I'm going to wrap this up. But what an amazing show, Jon Mochota. You said you got to leave in 20 minutes, and you hit it right on the dot. Can we get claps in the chat for Jon Mochota, ladies and gentlemen? Just a nice, big, roaring clap in the chat. And, Jon, I will say this. You go out there week 1, you beat Philly, things feel different.
Oh, yeah, no, things would be.
I'll say this, Jon. I think if they played them well.
Yeah, no, I agree with you.
Let's say it's a 3-point game.
Yep.
They're in the fight. The receivers are looking good. Dak looks sharp like he hadn't missed a beat. Jon?
Oh, even hearing Micah talk today, he mentioned about how he's like, when he was asked kind of about playing the Cowboys in a few weeks type thing, and he kind of gave the right answer about talking about like he can't be looking past the Lions who they got in week 1 and stuff like that. But he was saying about how many good offenses they have to play. And he goes, Dallas has one too. I was there in training camp. What they have in CD and with Pickens and that, like, obviously they're going to be a formidable offense. So I don't really have a lot of questions about that. I think that they will score points. It's just how much impact can this defensive line have, because you have some new pieces and you have guys that you're going to be asking a lot more from. So, but yeah, no, you're right. I don't even think they have to win as long as it is a really competitive game and it's coming down to that last drive and that. And they're going blow for blow with the defending Super Bowl champs, who people still have as the favorite to get back to the Super Bowl. Yeah. I think that would say a lot, especially it being a Thursday night game in Philadelphia.
I completely agree. Jon Mochota, ladies and gentlemen, you guys show him love. Jon, I'm gonna let you go. You can jump off. I'm gonna stay on for about 5 more minutes. Get to these supers, man. Love you, man.
All right, man. Take it easy. Have a good weekend.
Hey, you do the same. Peace. Ladies and gentlemen, Jon Mochota. I want to get to these supers really quick, and then I'll let you guys go. Special teams wins championships. We got the best kicker, punt return. This is a good one. Yes, special teams, and I don't think that the defense is going to take some major step back. Watching the film, I just don't think that that's going to happen. And the last team to have 2 first-round picks back-to-back was Philly, and it catapulted them to a Super Bowl championship. The blueprint is there. Thank you for that, King the Kid. Great stuff. I want to give, I know some of you guys are probably praying right now. I want to give my pastor. I had to thank you for this super chat, guys. I had to let Jon go. I wanted to respect his time, but I want to give my pastor a shout out. What a great person he is. He watches this channel. Rick Saunders, great dude. And he watched the channel. He watched me on the Cowboys Collector. So I just want to give him a shout out, man. Love that dude to death. Jon Mochota, ladies and gentlemen, he gave us some great stuff. Like I said, this one wasn't going to be long tonight. I got Vach on Sunday. I got film coming to you guys tomorrow. You guys enjoy your weekend. I'm actually at peace, like in a good space, ready for this season. Like, I'm not really upset. I don't really think that there's a reason to panic. And I actually think things, dare I say, might work out. It's your boy, Foots the King, as always. Thank you all for liking, sharing, subscribing. I love you guys. Peace.